The ABB FIA Formula E World Championship rocks away from Tokyo, Japan to Shanghai, China. Welcome to rounds 10 and 11 of the season 11 of this incredible championship. We're moments away from qualifying getting underway. Let's take a look at what this track truly means.
And it's a track guide after all, so we thought who better to ask than the drivers.
This corner is just a nightmare. It's the most challenging corner I think in any race car. It's so long, like you have to worry about this part and then also the actual proper apex at turns 2. So trying to get the balance right of entry speed and managing your expectation of how much grip you have when it matters is tough. But yeah, you'll probably see a lot of 2 wide, 3 wide in here for the racing. But it's a cool corner, it's a cool track. It's going to be plenty of overtaking. Doesn't really matter where you qualify.
You said it could be 2 or 3 wide. We're actually stood 3 wide now. Which position out of the 3 of us would you want to be in the race?
I want to be on the inside.
I want to be on the inside.
If you wear James's, you're over there.
Well, it's a very technical, little section of corners. Rewarding when you get it right, very easy to get it wrong. It does feel like it goes on quite a long time in the Formula E car. But like I say, when you get it right, it's nice. Yeah, you've got to hold it tight here, but then it depends how much grip you've got. So yeah, we'll see. I think with the new tyres and the new tarmac, I think it will flow a bit nicer.
Right, high speed 7 and 8 max, talk us through it.
It's quite fun in a push lap, and then in the race it's getting quite interesting because often we go side by side with 2 cars through here, and yeah, I would say sector 2, one of my favorite parts of the track.
So we're here at turn 10, 11, 12, Billy, and we've noticed a few track changes ahead of this weekend.
Yeah, some quite hefty changes, starting with the apex curb here at turn 11. This last year was completely deadpan flat, and what we saw last year was basically cars being positioned on the opposite side of the curb and almost cutting this corner to a certain extent. Not going to be able to do that this year with this hefty curb. I think the driver's going to be taking off if they do that, James.
I think it's going to be a huge challenge this last part of the lap. That's our track guide. Enjoy the racing.
Lovely stuff, boys. Great way to whet the appetite for the action on track that is about to take place. But qualifying, what is critical here? Because, of course, in the group phases, it's a 300 kilowatt lap.
Tyre preparation, getting your tyres in the right window to nail that 1 lap, especially with only using rear-wheel drive in the group phase, is going to be crucial.
Billy, you know this track better than any. You were actually on track driving in the Formula E Gen 3 car.
Yeah, last year here in the Gen 3, I mean, I had a lot of fun, as you can tell from that sideways moment going through turn 2 there. It's a real challenge for the drivers. Lots of long apex corners like we touched on in the track guide. So, again, it's just getting those tyres in the working window. It's so crucial.
All right, well, we will find out soon who will be on pole here in Shanghai. But if you are new to Formula E, here is how this fantastic form of motorsport works. Formula E, it's the world's first all-electric motorsport.
From day one, it's been carbon net zero, bringing emission-free racing to iconic city streets around the globe.
The championship has attracted the biggest manufacturers
and the fastest drivers on the planet.
In just 10 seasons, we've already had 9 different champions.
So, how does it all work?
Each race unfolds in a single day, with practice, qualifying and the race itself happening just a matter of hours apart.
Qualifying is split into 2 stages. First, the group stage, where drivers push to set their fastest times. Then, the top 8 advance through to the knockout duels.
Drivers face off in 1-lap shootout until the last driver standing claims pole position and 3 vital championship points.
Now, it's time to race.
Lights out and we're racing. The race distance is fixed by a set number of laps.
The first driver to cross the finish line takes maximum points with a bonus point for the fastest lap.
The race start is always epic. The fastest accelerating single-seater race cars on the planet hurtling into turn 1, drama guaranteed.
Best bit for me, it has to be attack mode.
Drivers activate attack mode by moving off the racing line and passing through the activation zones. This unlocks more grip and an extra 50 kilowatts of power, giving the drivers the edge they need to attack or defend.
And in Season 11, we introduce Pit Boost. What is it? Simply put, it's a mandatory, ultra-fast, energy-boosting pit stop, which adds, in just 30 seconds, 10% of energy into the car's battery.
And after 16 wheel-to-wheel races, the driver with the most points will be crowned Formula E World Champion.
All set to go for qualifying for round 10 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. It's the Hankook Shanghai E-Prix at the Shanghai International Circuit. First out then is Group A. 12 minutes in this session. The car's limited to 300 kilowatts per hour and two-wheel drive. Oliver Rowland, the championship leader, alongside Antonio Fierce da Costa, Jake Dennis, Eduardo Mortar, Sebastian Boemi, Maximilian Gunther, and then alongside Nick Cassidy, Jake Hughes, Nico Muller, Norman Nato and Zane Maloney. They're the drivers that are going to be heading out there as the green light goes on and we're underway for this session. Well, the drivers arrived this morning in beautiful sunshine. It's clouded over slightly. Track temperature now at 30 degrees Celsius. Temperature is at 26. There's a 42% humidity that's blowing in as well. No wind speed, so this overcast weather is due to stay throughout the entirety of the race weekend. More rain, however, is due in tomorrow, and that's going to be a big, big factor. Today's the only dry running. Tomorrow, it is going to hammer it down. We saw what it was like in Tokyo when that rain came. Tom Brooks, Andre Lotto and Corinne Channock alongside on the World Feed commentary. Let's say good afternoon to them as the drivers head out there on their build-up lap times.
One to watch is actually Oliver Rowland. He was bottom of the timesheets, which is the exact opposite place to where he is in the championship table in the final free practice session. And we just saw a shot of him there in the pit garage. Brand new tyres, Andre, on the Nissan car. So we were talking about how tyres, and we heard James there saying how tyres and tyre prep super important here. It's because we've got an unusual track for Formula E, isn't it? Long corners, long radius corners here.
Exactly, a lot of lateral load, and also very easy for the drivers to find that limit. And
okay, Nico, this is out push. This is out push. We try to overtake cars on the outlap. Remember Victor 2.0, Victor 2.0.
So that's what we were saying before. Out push means like there's not even a prep lap. So that's how easy it is to put the tires in the window. And especially when they're new like that, they have that one peak lap at the beginning. So it'll be interesting to see if the teams will rotate through their two sets to try to get more out of it, or if there's really just that super one peak and then that's it.
They've got to manage the tires they've got because they've only got 3 sets across the 2 days. Now tomorrow's expected to be wet, so do you gamble and use up your new sets today thinking, you know what, tomorrow if it's wet it's going to be less critical? Or do you think, actually we need bigger tread depth, bigger blocks for if we get torrential rain tomorrow?
Well, for sure, I think looking at the weather, that's what I would do. And especially for the race, the tires are quite consistent. It's more a thermal issue that they have. So meaning that you get the peak out of the tire, and then let's say it's not game over, but then they stay quite consistent. So yeah, you want to get the maximum out of them on that one lap in quali, and yeah, for the race you figure out what you do with the car setup to not overheat too much the surface. But the wear is not as it used to be, like it was on the Michelin tires, for example. You can even see it on the track. There's no marbles or anything. The wear is very, very minimal. It's more how to control the thermal.
Yeah, a lot of talk about car setup going into qualifying here today in particular as well. Some drivers not happy with them. That, of course, headed by Oliver Rowland. He was struggling with the balance of the car, as Corinne said, down in last place in practice 2 this morning. His teammate Norman Natter also in 20th as well.
It's interesting because Müller, they said he should be on an out push, and these guys are on an out build push. So
yeah, you can see Muller's gone out straight away.
10.8.
Yeah, and then a 110.8. Everyone else in the 17s, 18s, 19s, because they're building up the temperatures. So just to explain to people, so if you're new to Formula E, in the group stages, they've only got 300 kilowatts of power and two-wheel drive. You see Nico Muller's car sliding around a bit there. It's the apex a bit of the right hand of turn 8. When they get to the dual stages, they'll have 350 kilowatts of power and four-wheel drive. So expect the lap time to improve by a couple of seconds then.
Yeah, so through the final sector, this part of the track has been reprofiled. Well, just coming back into the pit lane and aborting the end of that lap.
That's an odd thing to do, to be pushing so hard.
Well, he saw on his split times that he's not going to beat the time he did before. So he did a double push, actually.
Yeah.
But they're probably going to cycle through the other set. So he put a banker lap, a good reference.
But that's the thing, Andre. His first two sectors were quicker. That's why you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the last sector he made a mistake, so therefore to gain the time, because there's not that much time when you go through two sets with the pit stop and everything.
Muller's teammate Jake Dennis just setting his first benchmark time in the session of 1:10.504, 3 cents of a second quicker than the German.
That's a good time, I think, for a 300 kilowatt mode. You know, we were seeing this morning in the higher power mode, people in the high 1:08s, expect a 2-second difference. So they're going to be high 1:09s probably with a bit of track evolution, isn't it? High 1:09s, low 1:10s is where the dual lap time is going to be, I think.
Yeah, and originally in this session so far, we've got Dennis on top with a 1:10.5. Muller's coming to the pit lane, but Andretti looking strong, 1:10.8. Fastest sector time, Jake Hughes has got sector 1 as well with a 23.7. 22.5 coming in now as well for Norman Nato. Hughes jumps up to the top of the timesheets already. Da Costa looks like he's going to make an improvement as he comes through the back half of the track as well. Over through turns 10, 11 and 12 and over the line. And Hughes now to the top with a 1:10.321. So improvements already coming with track temperature improving out here.
Make it through given their performance in practice. Well, you'd have to say Da Costa is a bit of a surefire bet.
Yep, behind 5.5. Next lap, build lap, scenario 6. Where are the others there? The guys ahead of you are starting a lap now. Buemi ahead, starting to push. Maloney finishes a push. All of them or just him? All of them.
So yeah, that's the info for him not to be impeded. I thought the question he asked would be like what lap they're targeting, if they're doing out, build, push.
I think that's what he was asking.
Yeah, but then the engineer told him Boehm is pushing, which is not an...
Yeah, and he's backed out of this one. So I think you're right. I think he was asking what are the other drivers doing in terms of, are they going out and pushing straight away like we saw Andretti's, or are they taking 1 lap or 2 laps to build up? And I don't think his engineer quite understood the question, so he was getting slightly different information there.
It's an interesting divergence in strategies for the run plans in this session. Normally in these group stages, we generally see drivers going out, they'll do a run, they'll come back in for the end of the session, they'll go out, do another run, and that's kind of how it works. But, you know, it seems to be like with Muller going out, doing his banker lap time quite early on. Do you think he's just sort of trying to get out whilst the track was clean, or do you think track evolution?
He's going again, though. I think, to Andre's point, I think he's come in and put on another set of tyres, and he's just gone back out of the pits. So let's watch Da Costa here, Tom, because I think he's just started a push lap here.
You know what also Muller could be doing? He could cycle through 3 sets. I mean,
why would you do that?
So he keeps the other one cooling in the pits. So he started on one set and put the first set back on in the last moment.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's going to be quite tight in terms of the gaps at the end of this session. We're on board here with Antonio Felix da Costa making his way through turn 7 and 8. Hasn't been a particularly brilliant lap time to write home about so far in this one, so maybe just building himself up for another flyer, get those tyres into the right operating window. Through into the final sector, over the crest of the hill. This is where the track has been changed slightly in terms of the curbs. So higher curbs have been added because we saw drivers cutting them quite violently over the course of the weekend last year. So let's see whether Da Costa can try and upset the apple cart a bit. Fastest in that final sector, which will give him a bit of hope as the tyres get into the right window. Let's see what this lap time then looks like for the Portuguese driver.
He's done a 10.5, Tom, 10.532, a couple of tenths off the pace, but at the moment, not good enough to get to the duels.
But look, Hughes is the only one that has a comfortable gap. The rest is it's so close.
It is, yeah. Look, 3/100ths of a second separating Buemi and Da Costa from making it through to the Jules Mortara's not too far adrift there as well. But Roland, that's a good time there for Ollie Roland. He goes up into second quickest, but 3 minutes left of this session, so still time for a lot of drivers to improve. All 11 now out on track, and Nissan in particular Oh, just improves as well. But just going back to Nissan, they were looking a little bit at sea this morning in terms of the car setup. Both their drivers down the order. So I wonder whether they'd have been knocking on the door of Neon McLaren and asking what setup Taylor Barnard had, because Barnard was actually second fastest in practice this morning. Either way, car looks a little bit faster for Roland here in Group A quali.
Yeah, that's encouraging, isn't it? Because they both look absolutely nowhere, both Norman Nato and Roland. So we got now third and fifth is much better.
Okay, double cool 130 target, double cool available. Buemi might push, be careful, gap 3.
Yeah, but when we might push, and that's because of where he is on the circuit. He's coming in for quite a margin, so it's not looking impossible right now that we could be on for a little bit of a change around. Gunther, middle sector, is quick, 22.481. As he comes through the ulterior sections of this circuit that's been reprofiled ever slightly for this season. New curbs, new tarmac as well. It's a lot better for Formula E to run around here. Gunther's gone top by 0.3. It's a 109.939, a much stronger opening delta. So it's Gunther, Cassidy, Hughes and Roland. They're your top four that would progress to the duels as things stand. Roland just on the cusp. That's even more worrying. The championship leader might actually not make it through, and everyone's picks for race one later. Suddenly you're like this to see if he actually improves on the running order or not.
This session, Antonio Felix da Costa could find himself down in 17th place on the grid, unless he digs a lap out here.
It's such a different dynamic being in 300 kilowatts and then in 350 with the four-wheel drive. So he did the fastest time with the 350, but we didn't follow up on his performance in 300 kilowatt, which is the one that is important to get you into the duels.
Absolutely, yeah. 4 drivers will make it through from the group stages into the dual stages. At the moment, it's Gunther, Cassidy, Hughes and Roland. A minute left on the clock in this session. And who are the drivers that will be making it through? Well, you'd expect Da Costa, Mortara and possibly even Dennis as well to be putting in stronger performances than this. So let's see whether they can improve in the closing stages of this session. Cassidy's going to start to push as well, we understand, at the end of this one as he makes his way through the final sector. There are quite a few cars in front of him. It's a bit congested in this last part of the lap. You've got Max Gunther just up the road from Nick Cassidy here as well. So let's see whether Gunther is going to go for another flyer.
We got Hughes and Da Costa on laps as well at the moment, Tom. Cassidy does not improve, so Cassidy has gone 0.2 slower on that lap.
Yeah, and no one improving at the moment. Gunther's still in there, but is anyone going to kick out Ollie Rowland? Hughes going to confirm himself into third. There's a few spots of water on the camera lens as well as we come in to turn 11 and 12, but nothing too serious so far. Da Costa's improving, Mortara improving. Hughes locks himself into third. He's the first one to take the checkered flag with real momentum. Here comes Da Costa now. The track rewards the bold, it says on the Halo device as he jumps over the curbs past the pit entry where Formula One is. Over the line we come now. A little bit of a cheek at the back. It's only 5th fastest. Da Costa does not make it through. Now that's the first surprise. Roland's just going through. Cassidy's announced that he's leaving Jaguar. He's P2 at the moment. Muller, 5th. Nato, no, Mortara, 5th. Muller in 6th. Nato, 7th. Da Costa, 8th. It's changing every single second here as you try and counteract what we're seeing next. Maximilian Gunther looking strong. Here comes Oliver Rowland. Is he going to have a better run around on the times at the moment? Roland goes third, so it is an improvement for him to come through. Dennis goes second. That puts Roland down to 4th. Watch out Maloney and Buemi. Nothing from either of them. Gunther, Dennis, Cassidy and Roland go through to the duels. Hughes is out with Mortara, Muller, Nato, Da Costa. Then we get Maloney and Buemi in that finishing order as well. Hello, Sean. It says Da Costa out. Roland sneaks through just as a surprise to come through. Good morning, my friend.
17th at best. I mean, this is unbelievable. You would
Tough
not
business,
bet on
huh?
that after the first 2 practices.
What a shame for Da Costa.
4.9 off, so...
Okay, you're through P1, Max. Mega job. Beautiful lap. Mega job, Pittman. Great job. Well done, mate.
So Max Günther then quickest at the end of Group A. Dennis, Cassidy and Roland, the other drivers who will go forwards and into the dual stages of quali. So Hughes, Mortara, Muller, Nato, Da Costa, Maloney and Buemi are the drivers that will miss out. And well, some big hitters in that one. Of course, Da Costa being the big one, but also I expected a little bit more from the likes of Edo Mortara and also Norman Nato as well, to be fair, at the end of that session. They'll be disappointed with that one, but let's get confirmation of the classification at the end of Group A. Günther, Dennis, Cassidy and Roland will go forwards into the duels. You can see there, though, 0.5 of a second separating two drivers who failed to make the cut, and very close quarters indeed. Just 0.5 second, just under 6 tenths of a second, I should say, separating the 11 drivers at the end of that session. So very, very fine margins here in Shanghai, and we'll see which of the 4 drivers from Group B are going to be joining them in a few moments' time. It's actually a little bit cooler here this weekend as well, compared to yesterday especially. It was quite humid in Shanghai yesterday. Today, a little bit cooler and a bit less humidity, so maybe favouring a few other drivers. Da Costa exits out of the car, and disappointment evident on the body language of the Portuguese driver there. Missed opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, it is for me. It's such a rewarding championship when you're up there, but it's so hard and so disappointing when you're out there. And the duels are also mentally something. Either you're in or you're out. It's like it is mentally quite tough, and especially if you were P1 in free practice, you're like pumped up for this and feeling confident, and then when you're not in it, it is tough. So. Yeah, I'm sure the team's scratching their head right now and trying to understand what happened, and try to give the performance to Pascal Wehrlein. And also learn from what Jake Dennis did. I don't know how much exchange there is between both teams, but for sure the Group B will have looked very intensively at what Group A has been doing with Group B, because the performance window will be even more optimized.
Yeah, but they should all just be doing what Max Günther's done, because everyone's super tight. He's 3 tenths ahead.
Well, to be honest, mate, if I put my whole lap together, I can be 2 tenths better. Just risked a bit more than 7/8 last lap.
So Oliver Rowland, some team radio there, just saying that he's got another couple of tenths of a second in his pocket. Ended up making it through from the group stages of qualifying in Group A. Now over to Group B. So Wehrlein, Barnard, De Vries, Van Dorn, Ticktum, De Grassi, Mitch Evans, Sam Bird, Robin Freitz and David Beckman are the drivers who will be contending in this one. 4 from Group B will be going forwards into the quarterfinals. And who will the drivers be lining up alongside? The green flag flies then, the light is on at the end of pit lane, and the drivers filter out onto the track for the second time here today. So for the drivers, for the teams that have had a car in Group A already, what are they going to be able to learn? What can they take forwards into Group B?
Especially what's going on with the tires, how to extract the performance out of them, how to warm them up, how much to cool them, a bit of balance information if there's been some track evolution from FP2 to the quali. So all the information that you have are beneficial for teams that have cars in the first group and then now in the second group.
It definitely looks cloudy, Tom, out there, doesn't it? You know, just you look out the window, you'll see it's not looking as bright as you would hope, given the fact that it's, you know, this morning's practice was at what, 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's not like a warm, you know, bright day, is it, in terms of getting it back in the right window?
No, it's fairly overcast. Just looking at Lucas Di Grassi, who's been getting his elbows out in a couple of drivers here. He's trying to find track position on this open lap, because he sides past about 3 cars in the space of as many corners.
Maybe he's on the Nico Müller strategy to do the out push.
It didn't work for Müller.
It didn't work so much, but yeah.
Well, shame there for Nico Müller. Oliver Rowland, though, does make it forwards. Yeah, just as you say there, Karun, actually, a big threat of rain going into tomorrow as well. Of course, Ypres coming up later on this afternoon. We're expecting that one to be dry. in terms of the pit boost race, but for Sunday, there is a great chance of rain.
Yeah, James Barker has just sent me a message saying there's 10 to 30 millimetres of rain expected tomorrow, so that's not a small amount of drizzle. That is a healthy amount of rain.
That's a red flag level.
Okay, Lucas, we will go out, push. If somebody is blocking you, you let me know.
Okay,
so that explains Lucas di Grassi's strategy there. Try and find a clear track time. He was pushing on quite...
Yeah, try and find a bit of clear track time. It's really unusual to go for an outlap and push straight away. They must feel like the tyres are in a good working position in order to even conceive doing that to begin with. So that is slightly telling as to where we're going. And he snapped the rear coming into turn 7, so it's not even ready yet. The rear snapped. He was fast 6, 1 and 2, but coming through the back half, the rear snaps out on him. And a big loss of time. He'll go top, but Gunther said a 109.939 in that previous session. We're going to see this be a big change over the line. It's a 111.121. Not the fast time. That's how much it snaps when you come around on it. Karun will talk you through it.
Group A, but made a spectacular sumo, didn't it?
Yeah. Points for style for Lucas di Grassi. Shame we're not in Tokyo, because you could have called that a Tokyo drift.
Shanghai drift, not a thing?
Yeah, Shanghai drift. Yeah.
The drift culture
sideways
across the pond.
Sideways in Shanghai, maybe we could use that. Let's have a look at the driver's eye view here.
Shaking in Shanghai.
Oh, beautiful. Cross your arms like that, you'd fail your driving test, wouldn't you?
Like you in a rallycross, Tom.
No, normally I'm upside down. That's my problem.
But that's the cool thing about Formula E.
We go for another push. Target 10.3.
Obviously.
No doubt about that. So plenty of time left on the table there for...
Yeah, but they're going for 2 consecutive laps here. So he's not... Well, now it looks like he's back out of it. But he definitely kept pushing in the first sector, which is... a bit surprising, Andre, isn't it?
Yeah, because normally you try to optimize everything for that one lap. 2 push laps in a row, maybe when they're new and when they're fresh, it's it could work, but normally you build everything up. The reason why you do another build would be to get the carcass, like the structure of the tire, also warm, rather than just the surface, so both work together, and then you can get the maximum out of the car.
Still massively oversteer.
What?
Still massively oversteer. Well,
in other news, the sky is blue and water's wet.
Yeah, but that could be also because the tire wasn't ready for. It looked like, you know, you think you get the peak from the rubber, but when the car snaps like that, it's usually is when the tire is not fully in the window.
Yeah. So Taylor Barnard, he's been super impressive in the final free practice session, as he has been, frankly, all season long. And a revelation of this season, and already his first sector looking a big chunk quicker than di Grassi.
2 poles in 2025 for Taylor Barnard in his full-time rookie season. Let's see whether the Briton can continue his strong performances so far this year.
There's something interesting because many drivers haven't set up a lap time. It looks like they scrub the tires because a lot of them are in the pit. So then out in, maybe that is the better way of doing it. Scrub them and then put the used one in, find a good rhythm, get used to the track conditions, and then put the scrub tires back at the end to get the maximum out of it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have a look here at what the lap time is. So Barnard's done at 10.3. That's closer to what we saw from the first group. Still about 4/10 away, but we're seeing quicker times now. De Vries is on a very, very quick lap, as is Sam Bird, who goes second fastest within a 10th of his teammate. Look at Nick De Vries, though. Top of the times, Tom, on a 10.2.
Yeah, not bad at all there for Nick De Vries. You can see as di Grassi just filters out onto the track. So that time's now beginning to come in thick and fast as we enter the second half of this qualifying session. What about Dan Tickton then in the Cupra Kiro? Hasn't set a representative lap time in this session. Podium though in Tokyo a fortnight ago. Here is the Briton as he comes down into turn 1, and this is his first push lap in the session. He's got a fair amount of clear track in front of him. Vern's not too far up the road. There he is, just going through into turn 3, but himself on a push lap 2.
I mean, we absolutely have to. We can box and feed the spare tire, but it's not ideal. Okay.
Clear and concise as always from Dan on the radio. Then down in towards turn 6. Vern moves out of the way, so he's aborted that lap, and let's see what this looks like on board from Tickton here.
Yeah, the first sector's not great, is it? It's 10.5 down already. Let's have a look. This is where we saw Degrassi have that massive moment. Again, Tickton, little snap over here. That's put him wide of the apex, puts him offline. Then he gets another snap, and it just doesn't have the grip. It's sort of sliding just on the top surface of the tyre, isn't it? So the middle sector, again, he's dropped a bit of time, Tom.
We're hearing on team radio that he's complaining about the front left tyre vibrating there as well, so maybe he's going to come back into the pits and go for another run on a second set of tyres at the end of this session. Does improve, though, up to 4th quickest, but you can imagine that times, given how close they were, especially in Group A a few minutes ago, that is going to come down a little bit.
It's not enough, is it?
No.
You need to be high 9s, low 10s if you want to get through, I think.
Let's have a look then at Taylor Barnard. He's coming through the first sector, through turn 5, down into turn 6. This is where we've seen a few drivers just overcooking it slightly, but Barnard seems to have gathered it up all okay. Turns 21 tomorrow, does Taylor Barnard. And very welcome birthday present it would be if he could get himself into the duels here today, but possibly into the front row fight as well. Again, more rear instability. Drivers just having a few sideways moments through those fast corners of turn 7 and 8.
Can finally rent a car now.
Yes, it's true. They don't worry about the young driver's fee for Taylor Barnard. Through the final corner he comes then here. Let's see what it looks like for the Brits.
Oh,
it's going to be a nice lap time, but it is a 1/10 of a second faster than Nick de Vries to go into the low 1 minute 10s.
Yeah, but what can de Vries do now as he comes up over the line as well? He's been improving. It's 2/10 down. It's a... Oh, well, it's a 1:10.219, so 0.199 of a tenth away at the moment, so not too bad of a change around, but it's surprising, isn't it, how much differential there is between the runners right now. Barnard, so much faster, 1:10.1, but Gunther did a 1:09.939. We're expecting lap times for the duels to be somewhere in the 1:08.2s. That's already 1.6 seconds a lap faster than what we're expecting. Verline down in 11th, yet to actually set a competitive time, and 2 minutes 50 to go. If they get called out here by a red flag, they are really, really in trouble. As Van Dorn drops down now as well. Evans only in 8th position. Beckman, Degrassi, Jean-Eric Verne. Then it's Evans, Van Dorn. Van Dorn now jumps to 5th. Frines and Verline complete out. Degrassi goes 4th, so Degrassi gets out of that little melee as well. That kicks out Dan Tickton. Someone who's been really struggling early on in his Formula E career, suddenly exploded into popularity and in contention as well, with some stellar performances in Tokyo 2 weeks ago. Frines goes 5th, 0.044 down. Verline now 3rd. Jev puts him 4th with 2 minutes to go. Looks like we're going to be in for a slower middle time in this session.
He's a driver who will not start from the front row of the grid, even if he qualifies with the fastest time across it all, because he's carrying a truckload of penalties into this weekend. So whatever happens, he will start last and serve a drive-through. But if he does the fastest time, which he hasn't on this lap, he will get 3 points. So that's why he's out there fighting for pole.
Looked like he was struggling with the balance of the car coming into that chicane. This is a super slow mo from a couple of laps ago.
Took too much car.
Yeah, he just went deep, didn't he? Kind of a bit too deep and put him offline.
Yeah, so lap time on the table then for Mitch Evans. 80 place grid penalty that he's got, as well as that drive-through that he's going to have to serve in this one. So he'll be starting as far back as Sanya, unfortunately, for the Kiwi. Let's see what he can do, though, in the remaining minutes of this session. What about Dan Tickton here as well? Real hero in Tokyo, and indeed in the last couple of weekends. He's a bit deep there down into turn 6. I don't think this is going to be a lap time to write home about. The first sector, not particularly brilliant. He might get one more bite at the cherry, but that's, of course, providing the tyres are in the right rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, the first sector is only 800s off. To be honest, everyone seems to be around that 23.7, 23.8. It's the second sector where Dan's dumped a lot of time. Van Dorn is 10th at the moment, but fastest of anyone in sector 1.
Yeah, this is where the lap time's going to now start to improve for a lot of drivers. As they leave a bit on the table, Dan Tickton comes across the timing line then, and he's got 16 seconds left between him and a place into the duels. It's not enough at the moment. Let's see whether he can improve. Van Dorn's dropping a bit of time in the second sector then here, coming down in towards the final couple of corners we go through this crucial chicane here for Stoffel Van Dorn. Didn't look like he was particularly attacking the curves with much vigour as he comes to the line. Improves, but only up to 6th quickest as he takes the checkered flag. So the winner from Tokyo will not go through into the dual stages. Beckman improving, Degrassi improving, Byrne improving there as well. So the time history is now really beginning to light up at the end of this session.
Barnard set up a really good first sector.
Yeah, Barnard's looking strong here as well as they come out over the line then. Beckman's in P11, he goes fourth. That kicks out Jean-Eric Verne as things currently stand as well. So bigger improvement there. Van Dorn stayed in 7th position. Degrassi stays in 10th. Over the line then they will come. 2 by 2. Jean-Eric Verne on the dust. He misses out. Jeff doesn't make it. Oh, now this is going to be interesting. Over the line, Verline 3rd, Beckman 4th, Van Dorn finds they've locked positions. Degrassi 2. Barnard will go fast. 1:10.045. Here he is. Over the line, Sam Bird doesn't improve. I don't think Evans or Degrassi is either, so I'm afraid that is all she wrote. Barnard, De Vries, Verline, Beckman, Verne, Bird, Van Dorn, Frines, Evans, Degrassi, Tickton. That's your order, but the 4 going through, Barnard, De Vries, Verline, Beckman, they go through, along with Gunther, Dennis, Cassidy and Roland.
I mean, he's got to be one of the most impressive rookies we've ever seen, isn't it?
Yeah, I tell you, and if I'm a manufacturer team, I'd be having my eyes on him, because with what's happening on the driver's market...
And that's first in class.
With what's happening on the driver's market, I think, yeah, I would look at a driver like him, because, you know, of course he's young, but he's delivering.
Yeah, and you know, he's looking for a job, isn't he? Because that McLaren team, we know, won't be on the grid next year. So Taylor Bonner, I think he's got to be the most prized driver out of the market right now, looking for a drive.
Well, that's it. Also, if you're Oliver Rowland, and, you know, I don't want to do a disservice to Norman Nato because he's had a lot of misfortune, but if you're looking for somebody to join him on the other side of the garage, surely that's a match made in heaven. We'll see how that goes and see whether there are any developments over the course of the last few rounds of this season. Tickton will be disappointed, though. And that's where it all went wrong for him on that final flying lap. He just got a bit deep down into the first corner, and that's why he aborted it at the end of the session. So, in Tokyo, to the disappointment in Shanghai. The body language there says it all, unfortunately, for Dan Tickton. Very disappointed with that one. He thought they would struggle this weekend. Very different characteristics in terms of the circuit from Tokyo to Shanghai, and so it has proven to be. Taylor Barnard, though, does manage to get through for Neon McLaren ahead of Nick De Vries, Pascal Wehrlein, and the surprise being David Beckman in the second of the Cupra Kiros, now leading their charge going into the dual stages. Verne, Bird, Van Dorn, Freitz, Evans, Degrassi, and of course Dan Tickton are the drivers that miss out. Less than 0.2 of a second, though, separating drivers from 5th down into 11th. Half a second between first and last in that session. So, again, very tight margins here in Shanghai. And as we see Taylor Barnard making his way back into the pit lane, we look at Mitch Evans just jumping out of the Jaguar. He'll be starting at the back of the grid, as we know, because of the penalties that he's picked up following all of the parts changes on that car between Tokyo and Shanghai.
But mentally, you're not going into this qualifying with the best mindset, right? You try. You think, okay, come on, maybe I put it together and I put it in P1. But when you know you have this grid penalty, it's just it's a bit of a lost case situation. And racing is so much about mindset and about confidence and about what you bring mentally to your own thing and motivation. So yeah, it's a bit weird, this grid penalty, like 60 grids. They should just say you starting last, no?
Yeah, I mean, the frustrating thing, I guess, is the car's obviously in decent shape, right? Cassidy's got through to the duel, so it shows that the car is reasonably competitive. And what's been quite a tough season for them. They've not really, you know, last year they had the quickest car for so much of the year, won the team's championship, and they're absolutely nowhere this year.
Speaking of absolutely nowhere, our TV audio has disappeared. Oh, it's actually been gone. That's a little bit of a surprise. The live media centre has gone down. Okay, that's what you get when you're in some of the China Asia races. It doesn't always 100% work, and we're about to rejoin with them anyway as we get ready for the duel segment. Let's have a word then with Nikki Shields and get the latest information.
The margins in qualifying are just getting closer round after round. But it's Stoffel van Dorn who has dropped out of the group stages. Max Günther, who has claimed the fastest time in Group A, and Taylor Barnard, who has claimed the fastest time in Group B. James, let's talk through what happened in Group A quickly. Great to see Max Günther at the top. I mean, he's relatively consistent coming through to the duels. 6 out of 9 duels so far.
And what an amazing lap from him. We saw him so dominant in that session. He was clearly in front of the others, 2 or 3 tenths, and everyone else is covered by about 2 or 3 tenths the entire rest of the group.
Yeah, and good news for Oliver Rowland, who was struggling in practice sessions, but yet again, he has consistently got through to the duel, so he can breathe a sigh of relief.
He left it quite late in that session, I have to say. He was on new tyres. It was really on the limit whether he was going to make it, but he delivered when he needed to, when it really mattered.
Yeah, and then a completely opposite result for Antonio Felix da Costa, who was quickest in both FP1 and FP2, and then was one of the slowest in Group A. He's qualified in the 9th row of the grid.
Yeah, dominated both the practice sessions in the 350 kilowatt four-wheel drive mode, but in the rear-wheel drive, only 300 kilowatts, he was really struggling, and to see him in 17th, I think he's going to start. It's going to be a very challenging race for him.
Not an ideal start to the weekend. Let's go down to Billy, who's now at the E-pad.
Thank you, Nikki. And what a disaster that was for Antonio Felix da Costa. He's third in the driver standings. He topped FP1 and FP2, but in 300 kilowatts there in group qualifying, he finds himself out and starting down in 17th. We've got his lap here, and I want to look at the differences and the things that are notable from the lap itself. So as we run on board with him, again, Group A was actually the fastest qualifying session, so there wasn't any track evolution to deal with. But what we find here, particularly in this first sector, I'm just going to slow it down. Just want to look at the steering lock. You can see how much steering lock Antonio Felix da Costa in two-wheel drive is putting in comparison to when you have the 350 kilowatts and the all-wheel drive. And that, for me, is a sign of how maybe the car balance was more suited with the Porsche car for the 350 kilowatts, where he was excelling in FP1 and FP2. The tight lines he was taking in Sector 1, very consistent from what we've seen from other drivers. But in terms of that car balance, it was obvious to me from this early stage of the lap, he was struggling with the car and he wasn't quite happy with it. Having understeer in the car as a driver is frustrating, to say the least, because you're waiting for the car to do something. Again, we're going to make a slight pause here. This is a part of the lap 7 and 8 as we run through here, where we've seen a lot of the drivers actually struggling with some oversteer. Antonio Felix da Costa, he's got that lock in the car. Again, it's just slow to come off, and it means that he can't carry the corner speeds that he would have liked. The last sector we're going to come into now, this for me, the slowest speed corners around this circuit is where you can make or break your lap. This for me is where actually Antonio probably lost out the most. He was half second away from what Günther did, who topped Group A. Took a lot of this inside curb here, and again, I'm just going to pause it and run us through onto the top of this curb. The changes to the circuit we've seen this lap, that sausage curb, for me, that was, again, a line difference and a slight mistake from Antonio. He's had to kill a lot of corner speed between 11 and 12, and he comes across the finish line nearly half a second away from what we saw from Max Günther, who topped Group A. And Saunders was with him now to speak more on the lap and where his struggles were.
Antonio Felix da Costa, quickest in FP1 and FP2, but unable to make it into the duels today. What made the difference?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I just had a lot of... just couldn't make my front axle work, so a bit too much understeer, and I don't know. We'll look into it. These tires are not easy to understand, and yeah, it felt like lap times were coming out easy in the FP sessions, and now we were just a bit too slow.
Potentially a race today, though, that has lots on the cards, though, from even as far down the grid as 17, 18.
Yeah, it's an energy race, pit, you know, very peloton race. A lot of sleep trimming will happen. Pit boost as well, so we'll see what we can do. But yeah, we're gonna start a bit far back.
Thanks, Antonio.
Yeah, obviously feeling slightly deflated after that. But let's talk about the highs of Taylor Barnard, who was quickest in Group B, as was Pascal Wehrlein, who got through to the duels again. But a surprise result for Cupra Kiro. David Beckman has got through to the duels. Dan Ticktum has not.
Yeah, I heard Dan was struggling with his tyres, actually, in that session. He just couldn't find any grip at all. As we can see here, coming into turn one, he just losing the rear, cannot control the car. I mean, it's quite uncharacteristic of what we've seen of him over the last few races. And he's just really struggling to find any bite from his tyres in this session. So, yeah, tricky one for him. Amazing result for Beckman. Unbelievable to see him going through to the duels.
Yeah, it is indeed. Let's see what he can do in the duels. So we have another hour of high-quality qualifying coming up. Let's find out who will be on pole position here in Shanghai. Could it be Oliver Rowland? Let's find out.
Thank you very much indeed there, Nikki. So, look forward to qualifying in terms of the dual stages then for round 10 here in Shanghai. This is going to be hugely exciting to see what happens. So the two group stages took place a few moments ago in 300 kilowatts. Now we move up to 350 kilowatts and all-wheel drive for the drivers as well. Drivers going head-to-head in the quarterfinals, then of course in the semi-finals, and then in the finals as we find out who will be involved in that front row fight. But let's have a look at some highlights though from the group stages of qualifying. Drivers filtering out onto the track in Group A. Relatively uneventful affair for most drivers in that session. We saw Nico Müller going out early and trying to set the initial pace in the Andretti. Sadly, a strategy that didn't work particularly that brilliantly for him, as he didn't manage to get through into the dual stages. Saw other drivers setting faster lap times. Oliver Rowland, slowest in FP2 this morning, managed to get some good performance back in his car there at the end of that session and progress forwards into the dual stages. We'll see how he is going to fare. Max Günther also finding some pace in the DS Penske, but the big shock at the end of Group A was Antonio Felix da Costa. We saw him a few moments ago with Billy, and the problem that he had on his final flying lap, sadly not unable to unlock the performance in that car, means that he is not in the dual stages, out in the group stages of qualifying. Group B got underway as the drivers filtered out onto the circuit. Group A actually being the quicker of the two sessions. We saw a slip and a slide for Lucas de Grassi here in Shanghai as he got it sideways on his first flying lap in that session. A lovely save, but unfortunately not one that was beneficial in terms of the lap time. Taylor Barnard, though, continued to impress in the Neon McLaren, going fastest at the end of that session. Wehrlein also making it through for the Tag Heuer Porsche team. Likewise, Nick de Vries will be lining up alongside him in that dual stage of qualifying. Mitch Evans, who will be starting this race at the back of the grid, courtesy of a variety of different penalties that he has got, sadly was unable again to unlock the same amount of performance compared to his teammate Nick Cassidy in that session. Well, that was then. This is now. We move over to the dual stages of qualifying and up to the quarterfinals first of all. And here are the drivers that will be lining up in this session. So Nick Cassidy versus Jake Dennis up first of all. Then Oliver Rowland, championship leader, versus Maximilian Günther. Pascal Wehrlein versus Nick de Vries. And David Beckman, the surprise of the show so far in the Cupra Kiro. He'll be going head-to-head with Taylor Barnard. Of course, two drivers from each of those groups in the quarterfinal will be going forwards into the semis, and then we'll have a 1v1 shootout for the finals. Well, we go from 300 to 350 kilowatts of power and all-wheel drive here, Andre. What do you reckon is going to be the most important factor in this session? Where do you think the drivers will be able to find the lap time?
Well, definitely in trying to get on the power as early as possible without having too much understeer, because, you know, when you...
There's out X350, wait until you're in sector 3, which starts at the apex of turn 7.
This is just an info to the driver when to activate the attack mode power for launching the lap. You shouldn't do it too early because then I think you get a penalty, so you're only supposed to activate it in the last sector. But I was just saying, like, the dynamic of the driving style is so different, and here due to the nature of the track with these long corners, open apexes, you go so early on the power, and with the four-wheel drive it's a complete different balance. So you will see no oversteer, but you will see maybe the cars washing out a little bit on the front axle. So if they get the balance dialed in right, and the settings as well, because you're allowed to have full traction control on the four-wheel drive systems, which you're not allowed in 300 kilowatts. So whoever dials this in the best to deliver that power the earliest as possible, then you can carry that momentum onto the straights and have a better lap time.
Cassidy's finished in the top 3 of the championship, hasn't he? The last 2 years running, and remarkably, this is his first appearance in the duels this year. It just shows how much he's struggled this season, hasn't he, compared to the last couple of years.
Yeah, they haven't been so strong on that one-lap pace in qualifying. He's been really good in the race, and Mitch as well, as we saw in Sao Paulo. Of course, Mitch has been a bit unlucky, but it just showed that they don't have the qualifying performance from last year.
So, Nick Cassidy and Jake Dennis out on track then here for the first of the dual stages of qualifying. These drivers, of course, finished 1 and 2 in the World Championship in Season 9. Dennis, of course, being crowned as the World Champion on that occasion. As Karun said a few moments ago, Cassidy's first appearance in the duels in Season 11. How the tables have turned 12 months on from where he was here going into Shanghai. He was right in the midst of the title fight. Unfortunately, this year has not proven to be particularly brilliant for him, but he has managed to unlock some performance from that Jaguar car here this weekend. Will he be able to out-qualify Jake Dennis here this weekend? We'll await to find out as he comes round the middle sector of the lap through turn 7 and turn 8. Of course, all-wheel drive for the drivers now in this one as well. How do they go about getting the tyres in the right operating window?
Yeah, I think the key for the drivers is to especially get a good front tyre temperature, not to understeer too much into this long first and second corner, but still keep the rear tyres somehow fresh, because they are the ones dropping throughout the end of the lap. So, yeah, I think you need to find the best way of warming up, and let's see if Nick Cassidy did it the right way, launching the lap now.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, a lot of downforce errors down to the first corner. The rear snapping out ever so slightly as well. They're going to have to hold that one up. Now, what's the first sector for Cassidy? It is a 23.229. You can see on our tracker here in the commentary box. Second sector needs to be strong as well. They just need to hold it in. That's all they need here on these runs. Push hard. 350 kilowatts of power and four-wheel drive. Dennis's first sector is a 23.486. Down by 0.2 of a second to Cassidy. This actually, Cassidy may have made the error, but Cassidy's looking strong here. Leaving Jaguar. Maybe expecting Barnard to take that spot. Let's see what the delta time's going to be. 1:08.880 for Cassidy. Jake Dennis next over the line. Is he going to be able to take the lap time so far? Through the final two corners, over the line, and it's Cassidy who will go through to the semi-finals as Dennis is 0.2 down at 1:09.088. So through goes Nick Cassidy to the next session. And we highlight him and put him into Duel A for semi-final number 1. Cassidy goes through. Now the next one is coming through. And it was a superb lap time, to be fair.
To extract the maximum out of everything, so mentally for sure better for me.
And it's what you need to do. Well done. You're through, mate.
Well, a reason to smile then for Nick Cassidy as he makes his way back into the pit lane. He'll be going through and into the semi-finals, but who will he be up against in that session? First of all, though, quarter-final 2, Oliver Rowland versus Maximilian Günther, championship leader versus the winner from Jeddah back in February. And unsurprisingly, the momentum with Oliver Rowland, he really pulled it out of the bag in the group stages of qualifying after being last in practice 2 this morning. Can he do it, though, when it matters over this one and only flying lap?
Okay, Oli, so we managed to flash the kit, so the changes are in the car. I just need you to do -1 click on byte to reset the BB, but the changes we discussed, they will be in the car.
So this is probably an issue with his brake system. Maybe he wasn't so happy with the brake pedal, or so they wanted to flush the system. Maybe there's some air or some technical issue, and now they readjusted it or fixed it, but need to readjust the software for things to match.
Making sure everything is A-OK then. First sector time for Rowland is a 23, I should say, .282. Günther a 23.474. So already Rowland is ahead to Günther, the championship leader, the man who's dominating the ABB FIA Formula E Championship in Season 11. Sector 2, 22.092. Günther, 21.826. And now the swing has gone to Günther. Rowland's had a very messy middle sector. Is this about to be a big upset, actually? Günther is ahead as they come over the line. Rowland a 1:08.924. Günther might just take it through here, and this might be a huge shock for Oliver Rowland not to be through into this segment of qualifying. Through we come once more over the line. Rowland went first, and it's going to be Günther who goes through. Well, I didn't see that coming. Maximilian Günther holds a big shock. He will face Cassidy in semi-final 1, but he's kicked out the championship leader.
You don't have juice left for the rest of the lap. So he started the lap smooth, looking not so good, like 2/10 off Rowland, but then the rest of the lap was mega.
Yeah, essentially, I think you start to overheat the tires, and then for 7 and 8, you got 2 long, pretty fast corners, and then you just go beyond the point where you just fall off this cliff of grip, basically, when you start to slide.
Quarter-final 3 then, Pascal Wehrlein versus Nick de Vries. This is going to be a tight one to call between these two because the Mahindra has looked pretty handy so far this weekend, but the Tag Heuer Porsche we know is always quick around Shanghai. Antonio Felix da Costa won this race here last year. Across the timing line we go, down towards the first corner here for Pascal Wehrlein. And what is this lap time going to look like then for him? Through sector 1. Looks okay through turn 1 and turn 2. Down the hill we go into turn 3. You hear the tyres chirping away there. So what we've done now is we've slowed these lap times down between these two. So we've got a side-by-side comparison between Wehrlein and de Vries.
And that's we get to see a proper side-by-side comparison. Then I can tell you that Wehrlein's first sector time is a 23.218. First sector time for de Vries, 23.258. So 37,000 at the moment. Wehrlein's middle sector is a 21.9 exactly as they come through. Nick de Vries is 21.944, 84 thousandths of a second between them at the moment. This is a stunningly close qualifying session. Wehrlein over the line, and it's a 108.683. De Vries looks faster across the sectors. We'll hold that through as he comes across the line. And, yeah, de Vries doesn't do it. De Vries is a 108.472. So it's Wehrlein who will go through. And rather unusually this year, we are seeing a 1 and a 2 change between them. Because usually it's the second runners who are faster. Not the case here so far this weekend.
Is the fastest time that we've seen in the dual stages of qualifying so far, and the Porsche driver is through and into the semi-finals. He knocks out the Mahindra driver.
Yeah, it feels like Nick de Vries lost most of his time out of turn 6, going a bit too early on the power and then needing to correct, and the systems where we cut in a little bit and interrupted his acceleration out of that corner onto this long straight into turn 7, and from then on he wasn't able to recover.
Quarter-final 4, David Beckman versus Taylor Barnard. Cooper Kiro with the Porsche powertrain, the Neon McLaren with the Nissan powertrain. So into the final sector we go. I have to say, David Beckman was not on my cards for the drivers to get through and into the dual stages, but he put in the lap time right when it mattered.
I know, we've all talked so much about Ticktum off the back of Tokyo, and he's starting last. And
didn't see that coming, did we? Dan Ticktum will start this race last after the joys he had in Tokyo. It's a weird way it turned this championship, swings and roundabouts. Beckman now v Barnard. This is another swing and roundabout. Barnard, the young prodigy. Beckman the same. First sector 23.339 for Beckman. Barnard 23.267. So this should be a fairly straightforward debate as to who's going to go through here in the championship runaround, which sadly makes sense. But yeah, so semi-final 1, it's Cassidy versus Gunther. Semi-final 2, it's Verline, possibly versing Barnard. But sector 2, Beckman 22.177, Barnard 22.212. Beckman will cross that line, ready to confirm his lap time with a 109.266. Eyes turn to eyes turn to Barnard now, who should be able to sweep it away. Third sector's already looking strong. And it is Taylor Barnard, a 108.844. We've got our running order then. Semi-final 1, Cassidy and Gunther. Semi-final 2, Verline and Barnard, as we will go through once more for action.
Yeah, we lost the 10th in turn 6 going deep. And yeah, so he's definitely a contender for pole position.
yeah, he lost a 10th to Beckman, but I think he probably lost maybe more compared to what he could have done.
True. Yeah, it's nice to see drivers working the wheel. You know, that's okay. The speeds are a bit faster in F1, but you don't see the drivers correcting anything.
Yeah.
And here is really like hands-on. That's what's cool about Formula E. What I always liked also about driving FE, because you always were, you know, able to manipulate the balance of the car with going a bit more on throttle or tapping a little bit the brakes. So it is always a fun thing to drive.
Well, your driving map was good. I want to go back to FP2 brake map. I can do it in the garage, obviously.
So what he's talking about there is they've got different electronic systems to control the way that the brake pressure is applied from his foot essentially to the wheel. So when you first hit the brake pedal, you have what's known as a brake balance that splits between the front and rear, and as you come, you gently roll off the brake pedal, you have something called brake migration, which then changes the balance between the front and rear in the second phase of the braking. So as you get to the apex, and this is what he's talking about, so I would suggest he needs some tweaking there based on what's happened in that corner. He's thinking it's not quite in the sweet spot of where I want, bit of rear locking, and so yeah, he will affect that.
He was saying rear wheel map is good, so they have different maps between four-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, and from what I understand, I know that on power, on four-wheel drive, you have full TC allowed. On rear-wheel drive, you only have a tunnel of 5% of the power, or 10, I don't remember exactly, where you can use the TC, which is much less. But I'm not sure on brakes how much are you allowed to use anti-locking as well between both modes. So it's interesting. Maybe he prefers the rear-wheel drive apparently.
Let's have a look then at the Jules ladder and remind us how we got here then ahead of round 10 for the semi-finals. So Cassidy versus Dennis, Roland versus Gunther, Verline versus De Priest, Beckman versus Barnard. The upshot is, in the semi-finals in a few moments' time, it'll be Cassidy versus Gunther and Barnard versus Pascal Verline. This could be a very exciting session to see which of those two drivers will be going forwards and into the finals. Will we see a new pole sitter for 2025? For 2025. Well, the sun shines overhead here in Shanghai. The fans watching on in the grandstands ahead of the quarterfinals, of the semi-finals, I should say. A lot of support here for Neon McLaren. No surprise at all, given the performances of Taylor Barnard in particular so far this weekend. Up first, though, Nick Cassidy versus Maximilian Gunther. Last time last year, so the end of 2024. In terms of Maximilian Günther, where was he on the grid here last year? That was, of course, when he was driving for Maserati, and he started in 14th and 10th place. So this will easily be his best qualifying, whatever happens here for Maximilian Günther. Oliver Rowland, meanwhile, bitterly disappointed to be out-qualified by Max Günther. And qualifying, in terms of the race, not as important as it is at other circuits, given the fact this circuit is quite wide. We're expecting it to be a very energy-important race, but certainly the points would have done him no harm at all to increase it up to 80 points in the Championship League, but sadly not to be there for Ollie Rowland.
We get a great view of the kart track there, don't we?
You were waxing lyrical about
I was
this
saying,
look
at it. You get these fantastic S's like in Suzuka, and you've got, it is a really cool track. It's been about 10 years since I went, but it was, I remember it being
with
very
a
cool
little
there.
pond as well.
Yeah. So there you go, Tom. You can do that in the little break between qualifying and the race. You can pop out to the go-kart track.
Perfect. If you see me coming back into the paddock with a full body cast, you know that something's gone awry.
Yeah.
Well then, Max Günther on the way in a few moments' time. Of course, he's set one banker lap time in the dual stage of qualifying a few moments ago. Andre, when you've done a lap time like Günther, that was a really strong lap from the German. How do you sort of go and do that again, lap after lap?
Well, it's repeatability, and it gives you confidence, so you hit your marks, and the more often you do it, the better it gives you confidence. But you know it's hard to replicate, especially on a track like this. Turn 1, it's so long, it's so hard to get it right. You don't take this corner ever the same way twice compared to other corners. Like turn 6, you hit your braking spot, apex, exit, simple. But to nail turn 1 every time the same is quite tricky. But yeah, he's quite solid, Günther, on this sort of tracks. Like I remember when we used to go to official testing in Valencia, he was unbeatable, and it's like a similar style of circuit. So he's quite good in control. So,
yeah, absolutely. Looking here at Max Günther just fighting his way around this circuit as we get ready for the semi-finals here in Shanghai. So, semi-finals along the way in a few moments' time then here in Shanghai. Quarterfinals took place a few moments ago, which saw Jake Dennis, Oliver Rowland, Nick de Vries and David Beckman all eliminated from the session. Saunders was down in the pit lane, catching up with a few of the drivers who did not make the cut.
Oliver Rowland, it was 3 consecutive pole starts going into this race, but today, a few rows back, you'll be starting.
Yeah, honestly, we've had a really difficult FP1, FP2, so to make it through to the duels was a really good achievement. Yeah, just didn't quite have enough for Max. Was an okay lap, nothing special, but I'm really happy to be starting 6th, to be honest.
Talk to me more about that in the way you plan to potentially dictate the race in the same way that you're dictating the championship currently.
Well, we'll see later. I mean, honestly, I need to properly analyse the strategy, see where I'm starting and see what's the best route forward, let's say. But yeah, let's see.
Thanks, Oliver.
Cheers.
Nick de Vries, your 5th appearance in the duels this season, but end of the road here, quarterfinals.
Yeah, in all honesty, I'm disappointed. I mean, when I look at the times, we actually had the 3rd best dual lap time. But obviously Pascal was just a little bit quicker than us, so probably we were in a strong duel. But I felt like actually throughout the weekend we were more competitive in 350 versus 300, but we weren't able to do, to repeat the job when it mattered. So yeah, a little bit disappointed with the final execution, but P5 is still a good starting position.
With the strategy-sensitive race that we're predicting, it feels like there is really a lot on the cards from almost any position. Do you feel like you're in a good position knowing that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of Formula E, right? You can never really have any expectations, but yeah, we're in top 5, and that's a good place to start from.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Well, good to hear there from Nick de Vries. Disappointment, though, for the Dutchman to not make it through into the semi-finals. Just a reminder of how we got here then for round 10. Cassidy versus Dennis, Rowland versus Günther, Verline versus de Vries, Beckman versus Barnard. The upshot is semi-finals, Cassidy versus Günther and Barnard versus Verline. Only 2 drivers from those 2 groups, 1 driver from each of those groups, I should say, rather, will go forwards into the finals. And we'll see who is going to line up where on the front row and claim those all-important 3 points. So, semi-final one then, Nick Cassidy versus Maximilian Günther. Cassidy's first appearance in the duels in season 11, believe it or not. Meanwhile, Max Günther becomes the first driver to defeat championship leader Oliver Rowland in a quarter-final duel this season. There is Phil Ingram, race engineer for this weekend, for Nick Cassidy watching on. A reunited partnership and a rejuvenated Cassidy heading out onto the track first of all. As we look at Max Günther getting himself ready for that lap time. So out onto the track go the Kiwi and the German, and let's see how this one is going to head for the drivers. So Cassidy out onto the circuit, making his way through turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, Günther's looked really quick, hasn't he? He's, you know, I think even in practice he could have put the lap together to go quickest. But yeah, you have to do it at this point. You have to do it when it matters.
With Günther, when he's on it, like he's really on it.
Yeah.
Like and you sometimes you wonder how did he do that lap time? And if he's in that mode, then it's quite hard to beat.
Remember that Indonesia weekend where a couple of years ago?
Okay, so just remember tires and brakes, do what you need to do. I'll let you know when you're in sector 3.
Yeah, back in 23, he was imperious.
Yeah, he was just, he was nowhere all season, then suddenly dominated the Jakarta weekend.
Yeah, you have like instinctive driver, but he's so methodical about everything. So if he found something that works, he is able to repeat this because he's so, German, let's say.
You're talking about his hair. Like, found something that works, he repeats every day, it looks fantastic.
It does, yeah. If Force 9 Gale will be a hair out of head on his face.
Here we go then, over the line, and we begin the semi-finals. Cassidy hard down in towards turn number 1. Holds the double right-hander downhill into the quick sweep left. And so far, he's actually held it quite well. First sector time is a 23.362, so a good time here coming from Cassidy. Günther's already up in the first mini sector though by 94 thousandths of a second, so there's not too much dissimilar here, but the times are looking good. They're looking quick. Günther's up, 23.266, so it's not going to be as easy and as heartwarming as we were expecting. It's going to be quite a surprise turnaround as they hug and sweep the curbs. 22.043 for Cassidy's middle sector. Günther 21.955. Yeah, the time show it. Over the line for Cassidy, 108.779. Günther is going to be absolutely storming at this point in time. He's 0.3 of a second faster already. Over the line, it's a 108.494, and Maximilian Günther will go through to the final. Hands up, anybody who saw that coming.
Maximilian Günther, in terms of his qualifying performances in 2025, he's had a few good ones, including pole position in Jeddah, but he hasn't been on the front row of the grid since then. He's had one third place, which is the outlier, and that was back in Monaco in the second race of the weekend. So we'll see whether he can get himself onto pole position here today as we look at the struggles for Cassidy in that first sector.
Yeah, that was a tricky one for Nick Cassidy in the first sector. Lost the rear.
Yeah, all good. We did the most we can, mate. Well done, good quality.
He sounds a lot happier, doesn't he?
He's leaving.
And he should be. It's been a pretty rough road for him recently, hasn't it?
Also important to keep the good motivation for the team, and they've had a difficult first half of the year, so keep the spirits high is good, and there's a lot to do in the race for these guys.
He's only been in the top 10, Nick Cassidy, twice throughout the season. He's 18th best on the average grids, but anyway, let's get into it. It's Taylor Barnard versus Pascal Wehrlein. So Barnard is already up and running. Here comes Wehrlein. That's a neat and tidy run, Andre, through turns 1 and 2.
Barnard was even cleaner and tidier through turn 1 and 2.
Only 48 thousandths of a second as they come Now, Barnard into turn 7. This is where we've seen the bigger differences. Sector 1,
yeah,
we've not seen big differences between people. It's the middle part of the lap.
So close with
it's a 23.218, 23.268 in the first sector. Second sector for Barnard, 21.981. Verline, 21.949. There's 77 thousandths between them at the moment as they exit the last corner. Barnard up towards the line, wheel in the dirt, 108.503. Verline just behind. Is he going to be fastest? Who will be into the final to face Maximilian Gunther over the line? Speed reveals the path on the halo for Pascal Verline. It's not fast enough. It's Taylor Barnard who will once again go through to the final on the eve of his 21st birthday. Beat that, he says.
McLaren team, if it was pole position for the E-Prix this afternoon.
What a star.
Yeah.
Such a clean, neat lap, and the chicane, he nailed it so well.
And you know something, I'm excited for this final. Because their semi-final lap times are only 100th apart. That, you know, Gunther's done 108.49, Barnard 5.0. I mean, 100. It's so tight between them.
It's going to be a great show.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well.
So pretty much ISO on lap time. I'll update you on mini loops when you're in the garage. Just keep an eye on that timer, slow in lap, keep tyres clean.
Well, the momentum very much with Taylor Barnard at this point. The last two times he's got this far in the dual stages of qualifying, he's gone on to take pole position, once in Jeddah and once in Monaco. And let's see whether the 20-year-old from Norwich can do the business here this morning in Shanghai, or whether we will see Gunther on pole for the first time since Jeddah also.
TNT Sports, powered by Endura.
So then, over to the finals in a few moments' time. At the Weybridge at the start of pit lane.
And Sam Bird trying to understand what he's doing wrong.
Yeah, it's not been an easy time of things for Sam Bird in season 11, let's be honest. And Barnard. And you can see what it means to him getting through into the finals. And you can see the team there as well, just watching on. There we go. They knew that was a strong lap.
Surprised when even more up. I hope he's got good management.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That'll be well, if you get.
Yeah, most drivers are on the points bonus, so if he gets those extra points, it'll be included.
Exactly, and to be fair, he turns 21 tomorrow, so he can have a beer wherever he wants in the world, I suppose. Anyway, let's have a look then, shall we, at the Jules ladder for the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the finals here. So, Cassidy versus Dennis, Roland versus Gunther, Verline versus De Vries, Beckman versus Barnard. In terms of the semi-finals, Cassidy versus Gunther saw Gunther progressing forwards and then Barnard getting the better of reigning world champion Pascal Verline. The upshot is it is Neon McLaren versus DS Penske in the finals in the fight for pole position. Barnard set the quickest lap time of the two in the semi-finals. In fact, no, I beg your pardon, Gunther was actually quickest by just under 100th of a second between them. So, advantage then with Gunther, you would imagine.
Yeah, but who's your money on? I'm on Barnard.
I want to say something different just to try and be different.
Where are you going to say?
Yeah, the thing is, I'd have to say Barnard, just given his performances this year. Two pole positions.
For me, from a driver perspective, it looked a bit cleaner, a bit tighter, and maybe his package is a bit better, so it's slightly easier.
So let's have a look then at the lap times from the semi-finals. Barnard on the left, Gunther on the right. Down.
Seems like we've lost audio once more.
Barnard a bit more smoother, a bit slower, meaning that the car is a bit less on the edge.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You can see the graphic on your screen there briefly, just talking about the momentum of the two drivers. The youngest ever winner in Formula E is Max Günther. The youngest ever pole sitter is Taylor Barnard, but who will be at the front of the grid? So over to the finals in a few moments' time here in Shanghai. But let's head over to Saunders, who's in pit lane though, catching up with Nick Cassidy, who sadly was knocked out in the semi-finals.
Nick Cassidy, your first appearance into the duels so far this season, so a big step up in one lap pace, but going up against Günther today is always a challenge.
Yeah, I'm really proud of our guys. We've been working hard. I mean, we made the duels in Mexico. A lot of people forget that just because we got thrown out, but nice to be in them properly. P4 on the grids, it's good for us. But ultimately, these guys in front of us are just a bit too quick.
In a race like today, when it's so hard to lead, starting the race on the second row could be a very advantageous position.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to be honest, I think that the lead will be okay. The target's pretty high. I don't really know what to expect with the pit stop. I've been out of most of the prep this week. I've been pretty ill. I only just arrived yesterday, kind of midday, and so to have a quali like this is great, but I'm a bit behind on what the race is going to be like.
Thanks, Nick.
Cheers.
Well, good to hear there for Nick Cassidy, and glad that he's feeling a little bit better. As he said, the target there pretty high in terms of energy consumption for the E-Prix here this afternoon, so we'll see how he is going to fare. What do we reckon for his chances here this afternoon? Do you think he's in a good place?
Yeah, definitely, and he's very strong in the races, so and very smart about everything. I'm surprised he said that the target's high, because I thought on a track like this, the energy consumption is quite tricky to manage, but there'll definitely be a lot going on in the race, and if you look at his track record in such races, he's always been able to outsmart a lot of drivers, so looking forward to see how he progresses through.
Well, another driver who sadly did not get out of the semi-finals was reigning world champion Pascal Wehrlein, and Saunders caught up with him at the end of his qualifying.
Pascal Wehrlein, another good qualifying performance, getting himself into the duels, but of all people to come up against, Taylor Barnard, a very difficult opponent today.
Yeah, they've been very strong today. Even last year, if I remember correctly, Jack Hughes, I think, was on pole. So yeah, they seem to have a good package here, but I'm happy with P3. We made a good step from practice this morning, so I think, yeah, especially on this track, P3 is not too bad.
Thanks, Pascal.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to hear there from Pascal Wehrlein. So, well, gave it his all. Good lap time from him, but sadly not enough to depose the young rookie. Just focusing on the finals, in terms of how it would look for Maximilian Günther, if he got pole position, the 3 bonus points he would get would see him leap up 3 positions from 11th to 8th in the Drivers' Championship ahead of Verne, Buemi and Van Dorn. It will also put DS Penske ahead of McLaren for 4th in the team's championship. Barnard, meanwhile, if he got those 3 points, would put him 1 point behind Antonio Felix da Costa and would keep Neil McLaren in 4th in the team's championship. So let's see how this one is going to work out. A minute to go as the fans here in Shanghai watch on. The drivers head out into the pit lane then and onto the circuit.
Who's your money on, Karun?
I'm going to go Günther. I feel like he's...
We're Team Barnard here.
Yeah, we were having this discussion a minute ago. And I don't know. I think just given the momentum we've seen with Taylor Barnard, every time he's got this far in the duels, he's got it onto pole.
It's so tight, though, isn't it? As you say, there was only 100 between them and the semis.
Yeah, one mistake can cost you very dear indeed. So let's see how this is going to work out between these 2 drivers. There is Phil Ingram watching on for DS Penske. Phil Charles, beg your pardon, correct. Let's go over to the finals then. Taylor Barnard versus Maximilian Günther, and the momentum on the Formula E predictor with Taylor Barnard 65 to 35% then. So, waiting for the green light to come on at the end of pit lane between these 2 drivers as they filter out onto the circuit. 350 kilowatts of power and all-wheel drive for one more time here today in qualifying. Will it be a 3rd pole of the season, or will it be for Taylor Barnard, or will it be a 2nd pole of the year for Maximilian Günther? Out onto the track goes Günther, goes Barnard, I beg your pardon, as the Neil McLaren fans watch on. And indeed the rest of the fans here in the grandstands in Shanghai. have to say, it wasn't a particularly clean lap in the quarterfinals for Taylor Barnard. Lost a bit of time down at turn 6. Those fine margins could really come to the fore here in this final lap of the qualifying stages here for the drivers.
Yeah, not much to lose here apart from pole position. That's quite cool about these duels. In worst case, you're going to be second.
Yeah.
So you can really just like enjoy that lap and just go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they're both going to start from a great place, aren't they? So, but I think Saunders asked a really good question, actually, which is starting on the front row, this might not be a race you actually want to lead. So this is very much about trying to bag those 3 points and enjoy this this opportunity to, you know, have the track in the best conditions, the car fully ready for the one-lap attack, and try and get those 3 points. Well,
here we go. Final time here in qualifying. Over the line, down towards turn 1. Barnard out first from Gunther in second position. 3 points on the line. Barnard nice and tight through 1 and 2. Very nicely on the entry as well. He's kept it in a perfect mode. A little bit too much curb. You don't need that through middle of 2, so that might be a slight error in his booklet. Down we come once again. Yeah, Gunther's ahead. Barnard first sector, 23.270. Gunther, 23.073. That's 2.5 tenths up. Maximilian Gunther might be on for pole position here. Barnard's mistake, it's just lifting it all the way through. Now the car's sliding, coming through. Down at turns number 7. It was not the way it was supposed to be. Gunther's looking stronger and stronger. Sector 2, Barnard 21.960, 21.941 for Gunther, but still he's got those 2 tenths over the line for Barnard. It's a 1:08.621. Maximilian Gunther will exit the last 2 corners. He's going for gold here in Shanghai, and he's going to have it. The DS Penske is on top. A 1:08.234. Maximilian Gunther has pole position for the first of this year's Shanghai E-Prix.
In Shanghai, what a lap time there, a 1:08.234. That is an absolutely phenomenal time from the young German.
Yeah, amazing, and like we said, he's...
Hats off to you, sir. What a drive, mate.
Yeah.
Yes, guys! Yes, guys! Thank you so much. What a quality.
Yeah, when he's on his day, he's like, it's like I said before, he's unbeatable. He's so methodical about things, about his how he's applying everything, so he can just repeat that performance without asking himself too many questions. So that works out great for him.
Yeah, Barnard, I feel like Barnard was overdriving a bit, wasn't he? He's just trying a bit too hard. At 7, then tried to make up too much at the end, and it all got very messy there.
It felt like he underdrove turn 1 and 2. It looked so clean, so maybe he saw on his delta. That was a bit under it, and tried to compensate an extra push for the rest of the lap, and that doesn't work.
It never works, does it?
No. You want to nail the first sector and then be in a better position for the rest of the lap.
Well, very impressive lap time there for Maximilian Gunther. That's his 4th pole position of his Formula E career, his 2nd of the season. 3 points, of course, now means that he will go from 11th into 8th in the Drivers' World Championship, and it also leapfrogs DS Penske ahead of Neil McLaren in the Teams World Championship. So a very welcome result for that team, as well as a clear view down towards that first corner.
But what a lap time, huh? 8-2. It's like...
Yeah, look at Phil Charles here. He's loving this, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, let's be fair, you know, joined that team just over a year ago, and, well, his influence can't be understated on what it's been done for that outfit. He's a hard taskmaster, is Phil Charles, but he knows his way to the front of the grid.
Yeah, I tried a little bit more. I don't think I had it in me, but still a good effort, guys. We're on the front row. It's a good place to be for the race. No worries at all. Good stuff, everyone.
Yeah, well done, dude.
Well, what a qualifying session it was, and that's where we'll leave you, as it is late at night as well. What an absolute brilliant session. It is Maximilian Gunther on pole position with Taylor Barnard in second place. Join us at 7:45 British summertime for all the action from the Shanghai E-Prix. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.